you all for joining us to tonight's Crowd Conversations, which is our regular speaker series focused on building a circular construction economy in New York State. I'm Gretchen Worth. I'm the project director of the Susan Christopherson Center for Community Planning, which supports New York State communities as they plan for a more equitable, climate resilient built environment. And the Christopherson Center is one of the founding partners of CROWD, which stands for Circularity, Reuse, and Zero Waste Development. And we organize the Crowd Conversations. So tonight we're going to be hearing from a group of people from Cooperative Extension, Covanta, and H2M Architects who've been working to build a learning center in East Meadow on Long Island from reclaimed, reused materials. Before we get to their introductions, just a couple of housekeeping details. We'll keep this conversation to an hour, including the Q&A. So please type your questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll get to those at the end. And keep yourselves muted so everyone can hear the presentation throughout the evening. And also consider registering for our next crowd conversation, which is April 1st, April Fool's Day at 5 p.m. We're really having it. And we're going to hear how a soon-to-be demolished Denny's restaurant in Auburn was fully salvaged with just 1 day's notice and 3 days on site. And also that led to the founding of the Cuba Climate Action Network in Cuba County. So it's a fun, inspiring grassroots climate action story with a lot of lessons. So we hope you'll join us then. And you can register to get the Zoom links at crowd.org. And you can also sign up there if you're not already on our mailing list to receive crowd announcements. So we have people joining us from across New York State and beyond tonight, but I'm based in Ithaca. So I'd like to acknowledge that Ithaca is on the traditional homelands of the Gaeacahono, the Cayuga Nation. The Gaeacahono are members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, an alliance of 6 sovereign nations with a historic and contemporary presence on this land. The Confederacy precedes the establishment of Ithaca, New York State, and the United States of America. We acknowledge the painful history of Gaeacahono dispossession and honor the ongoing connection of Gaeacahono people, past and present, to these lands and waters. So thank you all tonight. Welcome to all of our presenters. We're really excited to hear about this project. And so before we get going, I just want to introduce people who are going to be speaking tonight and sharing their work with you. Greg Sandor is here from Cornell Cooperative Extension, Nassau County, where he served as executive director since 2013. Under his leadership, the association has successfully expanded its operation and received substantial grant funding for specialized programs in sustainable food systems, renewable energy, nutrition, health, wellness, and natural resources urban forestry. Additionally, he's led the fundraising efforts for the new East Meadow Farm Dynamic Learning Center that we're going to be hearing about tonight, where over $1.4 million has been committed. Sandor holds a master's degree in plant science business management from Cornell University and a bachelor's degree from California State University, Fresno. He has a wealth of senior management experience in the public and private sectors, including most recently providing executive leadership at CCE Nassau and Sullivan counties and serving as the director of the Agricultural Science Department at Chemical Community College. Prior to this, Sandor served as general manager of 3 New York State wineries for over 15 years. Additionally, he's worked for Habitat for Humanity International and co-founded From the Ground Up, a community farm project operated by the Capital Area Food Bank and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. So welcome, Greg. We also have Edward Sam Cole, who joined Covanta in 1997 at the Essex facility in Newark, New Jersey, after serving in the United States Navy for 4 years. During his tenure at Essex, he held numerous positions in the operations department. His promotion and final position of shift supervisor led him back to Long Island, where he was raised. He soon was promoted to chief engineer of the Hempstead, New York facility, a position he held until 2018. Ed was then promoted to facility manager in late 2018 and was responsible for one of the largest facilities in Covanta's fleet of 45 energy from waste plants. In 2022, Ed transitioned to his current role of regional operations manager and is responsible for all of Covanta's Long Island and New York City energy from waste facilities and transfer stations. Ed has spent his entire adult career at Covanta and gained his vast prior experience from the United States Navy, where he was recognized as a successful machinist mate. He holds multiple industry-related certifications and licenses. So welcome, Ed. Glad to have you. Ronald Lanner has over 30 years of experience in the field of architecture, design, and construction, specializing in public works projects in the New York metropolitan area as director of H2M's public sector architecture discipline. His projects have received recognition on both the state and federal levels with design awards. As director of H2M's public sector architecture discipline, he's responsible for the overall performance management and supervision of the architectural staff for that sector. His experience includes all phases and aspects of municipal and public architectural projects, from proposals to project management and quality control. Ronald is also responsible for internal vision and direction, leadership, business development, and staff oversight, ensuring employees have opportunities for growth and upward mobility within the department. Welcome, Ronald. And finally, driven by a passion for sustainability and building performance, Manga Chan has cultivated a diverse skill set across branding, marketing, and project management. As Director of Program and Market Development at the Building Performance Institute, she collaborates with government agencies, construction industry leaders, national credentialing bodies, utility companies, and manufacturers to champion innovative solutions. Her experience shines in areas like securing funding, crafting impactful proposals, and navigating the complexities of the construction industry. She takes pride in meticulously managing projects from conception to completion, ensuring quality and budgetary responsibility. Beyond her work at BPI, Manga is passionate about promoting healthy living through nutrition education, physical activity, and creating sustainable home environments, especially for underserved populations. This commitment is evident in her community engagement with the Native American tribal nations and organizations such as NAACP in New Jersey and the United Way of Long Island. And finally, as tonight's moderator, we have Susan Holland, who is the Executive Director of Historic Ithaca, which promotes and preserves the built environment in Ithaca and Tompkins County through education, advocacy, and action. Historic Ithaca is also one of the founding partners of CROWD and has been a believer in the benefits of a circular construction economy long before CROWD formed. Historic Ithaca has operated significant elements, its architectural salvage and reuse store, since 1991. It's also launched its Work Preserve workforce development program beginning in 2010. So Susan, thanks for being here tonight to moderate, and I will turn it over to you to get things going. Thank you.
Great.
And thank you all.
Great. I'm going to turn it over to our very long panel of presenters, but in a great way. So I will let you all take it away. It looks like, Greg, are you starting off?
Yeah, I'll jump right in. And
Great.
Thank you so much, Gretchen and Susan. That was a nice intro there, Gretchen. So you hear about all this experience. Now we have to put it to use, right? And make a difference. So that's sort of why we're here. We're grateful and honored to be a part of CROWD and all the amazing work that you're doing. And I'm just going to jump right in because I know we want to kind of move through this and have time for Q&A. So as you mentioned, I'm the director here at Cornell Extension. I think most people know about the work that we do at Cornell Cooperative Extension. But what we are here tonight to do is highlight a really exciting new project called the East Meadow Farm Dynamic Learning Center. And Mango, can you hit the next slide? And this is a traditional 3-acre working farm. We have been operating over 13 years here in Nassau. And now we're on the road to building this new dynamic learning center that you're going to hear about tonight. Next slide. Probably the most exciting thing about this new building is this concept of a public-private partnership. And you will be hearing from the leaders at Covanta Energy tonight. And really, this project would not have been able to get launched or even be at this stage without their leadership and their commitment. They've committed over $500,000 for $250,000 in actual cash on hand and another $250,000 in kind in materials and other contracts. So when you're listening to Covanta, you need to know that they're putting their money where their mouth is. And then along with that, $500,000, we were able to leverage $400,000 from the local county government and just received word on an Empire State Development grant for another $500,000. So really excited, and there's a lot of other irons in the fire, but at that core 1.4 million, we're pretty optimistic that we'll hit the finish line, which is around a $2.2 million total budget on this project that you'll be hearing more from. Ronald, our architect, Ronald Lanner, will talk about some of the details. But obviously, looking at it here, you'll see the entire building is made out of recycled shipping containers, and the entire focus that you'll hear about is on recycling, reuse, and green energy. So next slide. I already thanked Covanta, but again, a shout out to them, and you'll hear more from them. Next slide. Quickly, I just want you to know the project is landing at Cornell Cooperative Extension. We have been in business over 100 years. Our core mission is education. So at the center of this entire project remains our commitment to educating the public about why we're doing this and why it's needed. And then we're very proud to be connected to Cornell University and all the research and knowledge that they disperse, and really live out our mission, which is to put it to use in a tangible, practical way in the county in a way that impacts lives. So, we love that mission. It's not always easy, but it's something to be proud to be a part of. We have a county office in every county in New York State, including the 5 boroughs in New York City. So Extension is well represented. And then next slide, Manga. Each county kind of specializes in what's needed in their county. So obviously the needs in upstate New York would be a lot different than in a suburban county like ours in Nassau. So we focus, these are our main program areas: natural resources, renewable energy, horticulture. We have over 100 master gardeners, food, nutrition, and wellness, sustainable food systems, and always our 4-H youth development. And I always say we can't leave the youth out of this, right? So next slide. You can go ahead to the next ones. So instead of talking about this, I'm just going to kind of go through the photos just to give you an idea of the different work that we're up to. So being surrounded by water, we do a lot of work with marine science, water use, water pollution, anything to do with water, we're active in, and again, trying to educate in a hands-on, exciting fashion, as you can see in these slides. Next slide. We operate the Taste New York store on Long Island, over 250 farmers and local vendors, and we're now doing over $1 million in business, and everything is about promoting the concept of buying local, supporting local businesses, keeping farms in business, and also just educating the public about what a sustainable food system is, making sure that nobody's left behind in a food system that is truly sustainable. Next slide. And then I mentioned our 4-H. I'm sure most folks are familiar with 4-H, but again, always evolving, always trying to keep up with what is relevant. And we have a hands-on working farm. We do a lot of outdoor education, and anything to keep kids engaged and excited about what we're up to. Next slide. So this kind of brings us to where we are tonight for this presentation. We've been operating this hands-on farm. All the programs that I just shared with you are rolled out at this 3-acre working farm. But when we connected with Covanta and others, we said, we need to make this more relevant, more engaging. We need to expand our base. We need to bring more people in. We need people to feel like we're not just, educating, but actually feel a part of this. And most importantly, we want people to get excited and want to get out and try to make a change and have impact, as these issues that we're talking about are major issues facing all of us in our daily lives, but also in our longer term societal issues facing us with climate change and different major programs that are happening. So anyway, so this kind of launched the concept of the Dynamic Learning Center. If you notice to the far right corner there of the property, that's the building site. And now, we pretty much have everything in place, ready to go. And the plan is to have the building completed in about a year from now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our architect, Ronald Lanner, and then some of these goals and other pieces. I think I get another 3 or 4 minutes here in a minute. So I'll hit on some of the goals and some of the pillars, and how we plan to implement this. So Ronald, take it away.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Next slide. Again, I'm Ron Lanner. Thank you for the nice introduction before. So a little bit about H2M. H2M is an architecture and engineering company. We just celebrated our 90th anniversary. We've had all the resources in-house to be able to execute this project, which is unique, very, very specialized construction project. It's going to be sustainable, as well as adaptive reuse for the shipping containers. We came off a recent project at the Hempstead Lake State Park, where we won a platinum award from ACEC on a environmental education and resiliency center for the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery for New York State Parks at Hempstead Lake. So this building has exhibits in it, talks about resiliency and about the Mill River corridor. But we're not here to talk about that project, but it's a little bit of our background. Next slide. So to tell you a little bit about this project, which you want to hear about. So here's a floor plan for our project. It's about a 1,400 square foot project. It's constructed of 5 shipping containers. The 3 dark blue boxes represent shipping containers that are on grade, and the light blue containers are shipping containers that are elevated. So we're going to utilize the shipping containers to actually create spaces, open spaces, vaulted spaces, and more interesting spaces than just being inside an 8-foot by 40-foot long shipping container. It's a slab on grade construction, no second floor, and that was a choice being made so we wouldn't have to spend the cost on an elevator for accessibility and so forth and so on. Although there is going to be a green roof and photovoltaic, so there may be a desire to get people a little bit higher up, and we can talk about that later. Another feature on this, the building is in an L-shaped fashion. As you saw where the site is, it's on the corner of the site. The inside of the L faces into what we're calling a courtyard, which is going to have a foldable glass wall that allows the main interior space to open up so that they can teach inside and outside for this dynamic learning center. Next slide. So major design feature having it be constructed as shipping containers is the recycled use of the shipping containers. We're in the process of undergoing the construction now with regards to work. Covanta is not just a sponsor, but they've actually been doing quite a bit of the construction work with regards to the shipping containers before they get brought to site. So in stripping out the shipping containers for what we need, where you can see in the photograph right there, we took the floor out. But we're going to repurpose the material that we took out of the shipping containers, and we're going to have that on the lower level as well, reusing the framing, where we're taking out walls between shipping containers. Although the metal panel that's going there is going to be repurposed and put into panels, and we're going to use it for the siding on the outside of the building. So the shipping containers is the main structure in the form, and then we're reusing, as we're modifying the containers, for siding, flooring, and floor framing. Other repurposed items that we have in here, Ed and I from Covanta went to Restore here on Long Island and purchased some windows for the project as well. We are going to look to, it's not a large building, but we are going to look to repurpose all the doors and door hardware as well. There's not a lot of interior partitions. There's a lot of just open spaces being formed in there. And then also some fixtures and accessories and things that we can pluck out of existing buildings as they're being demoed. The other thought process, extended and future life, keeping the building and its design as flexible as possible, not locking it into one particular function, so they can have a multi-purpose space that can be used for multiple functions that they have. And then also the use of the wall panels that we're going to take from the shipping containers is also, we're developing those to be modular so that they can hang on the structure itself. And then hopefully in the future, well, hopefully the building stays around for a very long time. But when this building is gone through its useful life cycle, that those panels can then be used for another building somewhere else. Next slide. Other design features, definitely energy efficiency. We're utilizing passive design. That's why we're vaulting some of the spaces so we can ventilate out of the upper spaces using the chimney effect, the stack effect. We have sun shading to reduce the heat gain inside our building. That has to do with our orientation of the structures as well. We have an enhanced exterior envelope construction. The slide, the top slide there is InsoFast. It's an insulation that's used on shipping containers for modification. It's continuous insulation that also has studs built into it. So this way, you're not losing thermal value through the studs. We also have armor wall insulated sheathing. That's in the slide below that, where it's an insulated sheathing panel, again, continuous insulation, so we get maximum insulation value. And we're also showing how we're going to have furring and then a metal panel on the outside hung off of it. We're also using closed cell foam spray insulation for the connections of the containers, as well as where we have to have attachment points and voids that are created between the shipping containers, also to prevent thermal bridging in certain areas of our construction. We're also using ultra-thermal window frames. We want to have a lot of light and air, so we want to maximize our use of light and glass. Our MEP systems, we're using air-to-air heat pumps. We're also using hybrid heat pumps, and Menga had mentioned that we're using bioheat biodiesel boiler just to demonstrate another energy type, which I think will be discussed a little bit later. And on our electrical systems, we're going to be monitoring the energy usage through the electrical panels and LED lightings. Next slide. If that wasn't enough, we're going to have solar panels on this small 1,400 square foot building. We're going to try and get as close to net zero as we can for whatever the building can support with regard to PV. We're looking to use water retention, water reuse as part of this. Remember, we're on a farm, so we'd like to collect the water and reuse some of the water as well. We're going to use a green roofing system over part of the roof that isn't green roof. I mean, that isn't using PV and isn't on the north side. So we're going to use that for demonstrate green roofing systems. We're looking to incorporate art installations into the project as well. The project is still under design. We haven't finished it. I mean, we have the main bones and concepts laid out, but not everything's done. We're going to have interactive displays inside the dynamic learning center as well. And we're also looking to connect people to each other in the environment. So the interplanetary self is what we call it. We're looking to integrate that as well. So that's a little bit about what we're trying to fit into the project. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Ed. He's going to talk a little bit about Covanta.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ed Sankel. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I'm joined here by my colleague, Maureen Early, and she is our lead community relations specialist. And I've asked her to chime in and keep me honest if I miss anything critical, just to keep me going in the right direction. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Covanta. Covanta has been in operation for over 40 years. When most people think of Covanta, they tend to think of energy from waste. But as you'll find out here shortly in a few slides, we're so much more than energy from waste. We've gone through a whole transformation to what our company is today. But what the transformation doesn't really speak to is what the company's values are specifically. And I'd like to just touch on that a little bit as it relates to this project. You know, I think there are a lot of organizations out there, and I think Greg might have said it in the beginning. You know, we could have just wrote a check and tried to be a part of this project, but you know, that's not who we are. We want to be involved, you know, hands-on. You're going to find out about how much volunteer work we do, but engaging in the community. And one of the missions that we have is to bring value to the communities we service above and beyond safe waste disposal. So with that, I think we'll go to the next slide, which should be a video.
think we're not hearing the music.
Yeah, well,
Is that possible? I know we heard
yeah,
it before, but maybe keep going and see. Is this just music at the beginning?
yeah, it's,
Okay.
There was a vision that there could be some value that is created out of the waste that is coming out of a community. Genesis of the company was always a very forward-looking, out there kind of a thinking, because nobody at that time was talking about sustainability, and Covanta was. Covanta's mission is to provide sustainable solutions to the communities that we operate in. We are making sure that there is a way to sustainably dispose of the waste. And in a sense, we are creating a negative carbon environment for businesses and our communities.
all right. Well, that didn't go exactly as planned, but when you got a live show, sometimes these things happen. So maybe we'll go into the next slide. All right, so this slide talks about some of that transformation that I was referring to. You know, initially, Covanta started off as an energy from waste company, but we've morphed into a total waste solutions company with the goal of being zero waste to landfill. This is an example of some of the new business areas that we moved into. You can see we're doing hazmat treatment, reuse recycling, water treatment's been very big for us. We've always dabbled in secure disposal a little bit, but we're going more in that direction as well. And of course, there's the standard renewable energy from waste, which is part of our key core businesses there. Next slide. Okay, so environmental, social governance, a couple of key things I'd like to point out here that, you know, even though most of the waste that we're dealing with at the EFW facilities is post-recycled solid municipal waste, this means that, you know, in theory, all of this waste all the recycling's been done up front. We're still able to recover over 1 million tons of metals from that waste that otherwise would have ended up in a landfill. And in doing so, we're able to offset 19 million tons of greenhouse gas. I'd also like to point out the 6,000 plus hours of employee volunteer work, fundraising and education that we do to bring awareness to the communities around solid waste disposal. And then on the governance side, I think there's a couple key things to point out. When we were acquired by EQT, we were the first company in the United States to ever have sustainability-linked financing attached to, you know, how our finances work. So we're proud of that. And then also down here, you see in the bottom right side, publicly available data. You know, we've decided as an organization that we want to publish all of our SEMS data, SEMS being the constant emissions monitoring data. That's available on our website. I think we're probably one of the few companies that do that. Most organizations, you have to put a FOIL request in to see that. We have, you know, we're very proud of our emissions and our emission standards, so we make that readily available to anybody who's interested in viewing that. Next slide, please. Okay, so supporting circularity, and this really speaks to how energy from waste, you know, benefits the circular environments, business model. So you can see that, you know, we talked a little bit about how recovering metals, you know, over 1 million tons of metals, but we do more than that. We've been expanding the technology incredibly. We're into what's called TAPS now, total ash processing. We're able to recover sand. We're able to recover ceramics and other types of materials that would otherwise end up in a landfill. In addition to that, we've been really developing metals recovery, and it's increased tremendously. So, you know, typically we were going after the larger fraction of metal. This is stuff that's the +4 millimeter or larger, and now we're consistently getting below 2 millimeters of material. And this is not just ferrous material, by the way. We're targeting the non-ferrous material, so there's a lot of aluminum. A lot of this aluminum, by the way, ends up in the waste stream from different types of manufactured packaging. specifically in the foods area. So we're able to target and get a lot of that material that would otherwise have to go into a landfill and then be mined out as raw materials to come into industry. Next slide, please. Okay, so maybe we could talk a little bit. I was touching on the metals, but maybe we should talk about the example that you had on the hand sanitizer. Do you want to speak to that a little
Yeah,
bit?
sure. So Covanta was contacted by a leading pharmacy chain to destroy off-spec antibacterial hand soap. And we were able to deconstruct the packaging, take all of the cardboard and palletize that. The plastic bottles were shredded and the soap was decanted and recovered for, I think, a floor cleaner product or
Yep,
something. So
industrial floor cleaner.
that was just one example of one of our new offerings where we really could provide a service of reuse and recycling for our customer.
Yeah, material processing is an important part of what we're doing outside of EFW, of course, that is. And you can see here, like on the bottom bullet point, our Covanta waste, where we're collecting electronic devices, we take them apart and we're able to recycle the materials. So next slide, please. Okay, I think that's it for us. Greg?
Yes, thank you. Nice job. Let's see, next slide. I'm not going to go through all this, but one of the biggest thing that I wanted to highlight before I turn it to Mango, because I know we're tight on time, is the goal of this learning center is to be able to take on these global issues. Like Ed pointed out, when you look at garbage and you look at trash, globally, it's a major problem. In America, it's a major problem. In New York, it's a problem. On Long Island, it's a problem. And in Nassau County, in our community, it is. So in the past, Cornell is kind of, we do a backyard composting program and we try to get people to, reuse their leaves and don't throw them in the dump over to Covanta. You use them as a compost in your backyard. Now what we're saying is we want folks to take a look at this bigger global issue, but then also go home and set up a backyard composting program. So it's just a change in our philosophy and a change in our focus, knowing how critical it is to start tying these together. So that's kind of at the core of this entire project. Next slide. And again, to look at the regional approach and look at where we sit in relation to New York City, and just continuing to look at things in a broader scope now as we're moving into this this whole new phase of the educational work that Cornell is doing. Next slide. I'm not going to go through each of these, but what I did want to highlight is the renewable energy piece. And looking at, even for us, we're recently awarded the Long Island Clean Energy Hub grant for $4 million from NYSERDA, and to really look at how we can adapt and adjust and bring what Cornell is best at to the table. So for example, job creation, job training. So to look at the renewable energy movement as a way that we can help more people get connected and try to create more jobs and get people, involved, not just from, certain communities, but from every community on Long Island. So we have a heavy focus on underserved neighborhoods, but also making sure that throughout even our 4-H programs and our youth development programs, we're focusing on job creation and job training and workforce development and things like that. So each of these pillars of the new learning center, if you notice, they relate back to our original programs of CCE, but they've kind of had this new focus that I was talking about of being more dynamic, more connected, and a bigger message in our programming. Next slide. And same thing. This kind of highlights in the learning center. As we're building it, everything is going to be laid out in a hands-on fashion. And then the other thing that's critical here is this 3-acre farm is also becomes more of a classroom, an outdoor classroom, everything is connected to the building. So the vision is with that courtyard that Ronald talked about, it rolls out into this 3-acre laboratory or classroom, and you know, kind of connects the different projects. Next slide. Next slide. And that's about it. I'm going to hand this to Manga, but just again, when we talk about innovation, people keep asking me, what do you mean by dynamic? Dynamic is evolving, adapting, changing, and making sure that when folks arrive, it's something that they're engaged in and excited about. And we know for sure we don't need just another learning center. We have over $30 million in some new and some older learning centers on Long Island. What we need are people to be invited in and not just attending, showing up like it's a museum, but really getting excited and getting engaged and feeling like they have a team behind them. And that's what, you know, the vision of this project is. And we're, you know, excited to roll this out. I'm going to turn it over to Manga now.
I just want the slides to work perfectly sometimes. Hi, everybody. My name is Nanga, and thank you so much for having me. Oh, before I go into the slide, this is what's happening with these technologies. So I want to say that I'm really humbled to be part of this transformative project. As an advocate for sustainability and healthy living environment, where people can really truly enjoy comfort of the home and the buildings that we work in, I see the great potential that the Dynamic Learning Center holds. And when Greg shared his vision for a space where people from all backgrounds can learn and contribute towards a greener future, I knew that this was something special. And the best part of this project is the opportunity to work alongside with passionate individuals. And we're here today talk about all these wonderful things that we're doing. And not only that they're great at what they do, but they care deeply about the environmental impact of our work. Now, Greg has outlined some exciting goals we are pursuing as part of the Long Island Regional Clean Energy Hub. And to transform Long Island's energy landscape, like there are several core areas that are underway. For example, harnessing offshore wind and expanding the solar power to generate clean energy, investing in energy storage solutions, helping people switching to electric vehicles and exploring potential green hydrogen. These efforts must work in tandem, like with strengthening our power grid and making the overall energy use more efficient. Now, reaching 100% zero emissions and creating clean energy jobs are ambitious goals. Don't you all agree? And to make this happen, we need to support each other and work as partners. So there's so many things to consider. Like think about how do we help businesses embrace energy efficiency? How do we offer training so our workforce is ready for these new clean energy jobs? And how can we make sure that the clean energy solutions are affordable and accessible to everyone in our communities? Now, the good news is that we have some great examples from around the world, and they're all leading us to green building constructions. And that across the world, and investments in green constructions are creating fantastic jobs and boosting economies. So I just wanted to bring everybody to think about the buildings that we're under the roof of. They don't only protect us, but they also protect the earth. So the Dynamic Learning Center will be a living example of the possibilities in green construction. Now, visitors will see firsthand how we can build greener and healthier spaces and give materials new life. This center will showcase cutting edge, not only cutting edge, but cutting edge materials and innovative energy systems designed for the Long Island climate. You'll learn that these innovations are not only sustainable, but also improve health and well-being for the occupants and also the communities. Now imagine seeing a hybrid heat pump that utilizes waste vegetable oils. Think about that, like soybean oil, animal fats that would otherwise go down the drain, disrupts the sewage systems and pollute our waterways. And how about insulation made of mycelium Now, what you see here on the upper right-hand corner is not a block of cheese. It's actually insulation made of mycelium. It's a bacteria that has self-healing properties. And compostable chairs made from microform are materials that consist of mycelia substrates, which is a combination of discarded wood chips, gypsum, and oak bran together. It's a fungus that is able to digest these waste products and turn them into a tough structural material. Now, these elements combined not only create durable plastic composites suitable for use, not like in furnitures, but also potentially in architecture. Now, here's just some of our partners, with more joining us on the way. And through dynamic partnerships, we're cultivating greener future opportunities for hands-on learning and sustainable solutions. Now, this project is really bigger than any one of us. We invite businesses, organizations, and community members passionate about sustainability to join us. By pooling our resources and expertise, we'll ensure this marketplace reaches its full potential and benefits the entire region. So we thank you for your support and being here with us today. Any questions, comments? Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you to the group of you. That's an unbelievable project. I know Gretchen's been speaking to us at Crowd about it, but I'm glad to see it in person. It's amazing. And we're going to ask folks, if you have questions for the presenters, if you'd please write them into the chat, and I'll cultivate them and give them out to whoever needs to have the question. I have a beginning question. Ideas are born of people, but how did you all come together? Whose idea was it? Very curious about how it started and how you got together. And then and you've explained it sort of, but I'm really curious about how that happened. So
well, maybe I'll start it off if I may. But Ed and I are both part of NYSAR3, the New York State Association for Recyclers, and obviously, reuse is a big tenet of many of the conversations in that arena. And when we got to know the folks over at Cornell a couple of years ago, this all started with a composting project. The property where this building is going to find its final home was a building that burned and had to be torn down. So it was quite an eyesore on the property, but our relationship gelled so quickly that we wanted to continue great projects. The compost center is amazing, and the building conversation came up, and before you know it, we were talking about how to collaborate on something. And of course, I think Ed and I may have just gotten home from a conference, and I said, well, how wonderful. I think Felix had done a presentation with Gretchen. I said, how wonderful would it be if we could be a forerunner on Long Island for reuse, because it's really not something that's talked about too much down here. So I think it kind of started that way. But Greg or Manga, any other insights?
I'll jump in really quick, just because in my mind, I was part of a tour of Covanta probably more like 3 or 4 years ago with a group of master gardeners. There was about 40 of us there, and Maureen and Ed presented, and everybody was blown away. And but what I took away, and I keep little notes, was both of them saying, we want to be way more involved. We don't want you to just have a tour. So when people tell me that, I always make a note, right? And so then I kept, we didn't really do a lot the next year, but then I kept in touch. And then I said, hey, I thought you guys wanted to do something. So of course, Ed and Maureen said, we do. We've been waiting on you guys. So they really were the driving force. And then what Ed said earlier, I just have to vouch for. He's like, we want to be involved. We don't want to just give money. We want to be very active, and we want to see something big. We didn't want to think small. We wanted to do something big. So this is where it's come from. And again, Covanta has been at the core, but then there's been a lot of different energy coming from other sectors within the community. And I still feel we haven't fully hit all the support that's out there. There's a lot more support coming, and Mango really has been a huge boost, especially bringing in donations. She's been amazing bringing in some of these latest donations from Nora and others. So, that was my vision.
Wow, it's fast. It's really fast from Felix speaking to what you're saying today is very fast. I have some other questions coming from the audience, quite a few actually. This is from Chris Stowski. Forgive me if I missed it, if I joined a bit late, but did you encounter any challenges within building code, or potentially even earlier, did you encounter issues securing financing for such an innovative set of projects? And I think, Manga, I left you out of the last question, but if you had anything to add to the last question, and then we'll go forward with the building code question for all of you, which I'm sure is for Ron.
And I'll throw out the building code. So yeah, there's been a steep learning curve with regards to shipping containers. Actually for us, luckily for me, we have had experience building some structures with shipping containers, doing it for other functions. But so fortunately, our structural engineers had information regarding that. One thing I forgot to mention, we had to decide early on where our thermal envelope was going to be. We chose to put the insulation on the outside of the shipping containers. You can put it on the inside, but that would reduce the amount of square footage that you would have. So we chose to put it on the outside. It did afford us the possibility of having continuous insulation. And then also it gave us the opportunity to reclad it. We really could have made the building look like anything desired, but we are going to repurpose the walls that we are taking down. So again, it's a very interesting project. So yeah, there have been challenges all along the way. And just throwing onto the comments that were made, the mission of the major players in this CCE and Covanta are so expansive, but they're very focused. And the goal is to make this building a living, breathing representation of what it is, not just to have where you can talk about it, but to implement it. So we've thrown so many different ideas around, and so much has stuck on, and we're trying to integrate everything into this little building, and we've gotten a lot there. So
Great. Manga, did you have something that you were going to add to the last question, which was about the idea?
It's really their idea. I'm just following them along, like with the ride. It's been great, obviously, and cannot wait to do even more. So yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. A next question from Gretchen, actually. What challenges did you find regarding sourcing reused containers and windows and doors, and what can the nascent reuse building material market learn from your experiences?
Well, I would say the sourcing of the shipping containers was fairly easy. There seemed to be an abundance of huge containers that are rusting away in undisclosed locations throughout the country. So I would say that part of it wasn't much of a challenge. But I think, Ron, maybe you could talk to a little bit of, since we're shooting high for the efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Utilizing some of the windows and door, could be a little bit challenging.
Sourcing other materials is a little bit of a challenge. Early on in the project, we put together a list and said, are these things, can we reuse wiring? Not likely. Fire alarm. What are we going to be able to get through the current code and building official? So we kind of put two lists together. This is what we think is being built into the project, and we put it, yes, maybe, no, right? and then we've been taking that approach. It's not that large of a building, and we're not really, it's not that large of a building. So fortunate for us, we don't have to do a lot of things in large quantities. So we're able to, we may need a dozen doors. We may need, so for getting things to match isn't going to be as much of a problem. But we actually are taking it upon ourselves for projects that we're designing because we don't have a great, there is a restore here, but there isn't a great industry for getting these materials. So we've challenged ourselves as a company, H2M, and we're tracking projects that other clients of ours are putting into demolition and kind of setting things up, hey, can we have this for this project? And that's how we're looking to source a lot of the project's materials. But we did want to go to Restore and make sure we got some things there as well, and touch all the different aspects.
I would like to add that I think that's probably my biggest frustration in this, is that I don't feel that there's a market anywhere around here for this. And I had reached out to the Nassau 3 group, and Renee Pineda was so good, and she sent me a whole inventory, really, really organized and stuff, but it isn't local, we just don't have it here. So the development of a formal system is so needed, and maybe it could come out of our project somehow if we were able to foster that. But I mean, I drive these guys crazy because I'll stop off on the side of the road and an abandoned building. I'm like, I found garage doors, well, and they're like, they're not energy efficient, they're not this, but it is a little bit of a frustration, I will say, yeah.
Yes, I think I see another, I don't think Renee's on here today, but we have a working group, I think, ready to go for y'all with that. Being in the salvage business, I've been in the salvage business for about almost 20 years, and I agree completely. So, and I know Diane is here. There's a lot of us here right now who are working on that. We can't, building materials again are taking up our landfills, as you know, and as the real reason we're doing this and what we have to do with it. I just want to keep getting into the codes here. When you're all talking about the codes and your local officials, do you have, when you're, somebody asked, Chris again, as a follow-up, do you think there are opportunities for influencing local codes through demonstration projects? And do you get a sense that within the local building developer code scene that there was interest in adopting some of these ideas? Did you have progressive and forward-thinking code folks?
Well, fortunately for us, the county is a partner in the project, so we've been able to engage them from day one on what we were doing, and they've supported it. So we do have to prove out our measures, so we're not looking for any special hand-me-downs or special exceptions. We're trying to do it out and out. I think the industry, in terms of architecture and engineering, could do a better job with regards to understanding how to detail and how to make it easier to repurpose materials and almost be able to plug and play the materials so that there's not so much of a energy going into pulling the pieces out of the project. So we're choosing to make our panelized system, because we don't know what the approach is going to be in the future. We're going to try and make it as easy as possible to remove our exterior wall panels, to make them more modular so that they can be reused, as opposed to making them just custom for this project. So even though we could make things, it's not that big of a project, we could make them custom to this. We're going to try and make them into a module that we think may be something that may be able to be reused in the future. Hopefully we get that right.
That's awesome.
Susan, I wanted to quick add a piece that was important. So the county really wouldn't get behind the project fully until we went through public hearings. So we did need to present to the open space committee. That was our first step, and they were thrilled about it and excited. So that helped to get that support from the county, legislature. And then the second was the county planning board. We had to present the project to as well. So
Great.
Those two hearings, and the second process was, 2 different hearings, one to the board, and the second was a public hearing where folks from the community came out. So that was good to know the community's behind this and supportive and asked all the questions. And then once we passed that process, that's when Nassau County, like Ronald basically said, as long as you meet the codes that are existing, we didn't really have to go through the regular permitting process that most projects do.
That's fantastic news, actually. And how long did it take you to get from your presentation to a public hearing?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't have it down, but it did take a lot longer than we wanted, but we did have friends expediting it. So I think somewhere between 6 to 8 months to go through that whole process. Yeah.
It's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. And and scheme of things. One other question, are you planning to do carbon calculations regarding the reuse of materials versus a new build?
It was discussed. We haven't yet, but
Okay.
it's one of the things that are on our list of things to potentially do.
Great. I wanted to be mindful of everybody's time. It's just about 6 o'clock. If anybody had one last question, if the presenters are willing to stay for another couple minutes. Anybody else have another question? Oh, Felix, I knew it. He said energy efficiency seems to take importance over reuse in this project, at least in the envelope design. Could you talk about the reasons for this decision? Is this a building permit requirement? Do you, for example, really need spray foam in between containers, risking their reusability down the road, or could this be rigid insulation from natural materials?
So to answer Felix, yeah, there are, again, we have to meet the code. We're trying to make it, if I can think of a better way to do it using something that we can repurpose, absolutely, I will. Some of it may be limited to my thought or the thought of my team. So we've tried to detail it to be, and we also have to publicly bid portions of this work as well. So fortunately for us, as you saw in some of the pictures, we're lucky that Covanta has been able to execute a lot of the modifications or some of the things we needed to do, because to do this under public bid would have been really difficult to execute. So we've been able to, communicate and get this stuff going. So we need to keep our construction relatively simple and bulletproof. So that hinders us a little bit, but it may be, again, my limitation on some of these things or not having a better way to do it. So Felix, if you have any ideas, you can probably get my number and we can have a conversation.
And yeah, and also just to add to Ronald's point here, we're also considering the possibility of using more bio-based or plant-based products. So there are some spray foam that are out there that uses maybe at the moment, like at most 20% of plant-based products in a spray foam. So those are the things that we're also considering to make most of what the nature has to offer instead of letting them go to waste at the beginning.
Great answers. Thank you all of you. An amazing project. Really happy to see it live. And that's what Felix said. Thank you. Sounds good. Let's plan a conversation. Smiley face. But we also really excited about seeing this and also the replicability across the state. I think y'all, by getting all these players together, it's super exciting for the rest of us out here who will be looking to you for those answers and talking about you lots. So anybody, I thank you to Manga and Greg and Maureen and Ed and Ron and Gretchen and the Christofferson Center. And please stay tuned. Make sure you check out Crowd's website. It's CR0, the number 0, WD.org for our next conversation on April the 1st. It will not be an April Fool's thing, but we thank you so much and look forward to seeing your progress and hopefully visiting it. So thank you so much. Everyone have a great evening.
Thank you.
Take it to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.